In these boxes in front of me is a new paint set that's just landed. That doesn't happen very often. Usually when it does, we get pretty excited. So today I want to find out if we should get excited again or we maybe need to calm down a bit. So these boxes that you see in front of me contain paints from a new brand called Kido Colorworks. And well, first things first, they're not actually a new brand. They're in fact a brand that regular viewers of this channel are going to be very familiar with because they are made by Galeri. Now, let's get it out of the way nice and early into the video. Galeri are a partner of this channel. And so obviously they sent me these paints for free and they asked me what I thought of them. And well, I think by now I've hopefully built a bit of an understanding between you, the audience, and me, the creator, that stuff doesn't make it to the channel if I don't think there's at least something interesting or worthy of a conversation about it. So they're not shit. Oh, and before anyone clicks off, we're not just going to be airbrushing, we are going to be painting. On the other hand, of course, that doesn't mean they're perfect, but I do want to go over what Galeri are offering here because I definitely think there's some stuff that, as miniature painters and as scale modelers, broader hobbyists in general, we're going to be really interested in. So first of all, let's go to a down cam and let's take a look at what we've got here. The complete range is 60 paints divided across 3 different box sets. You have a 12 metal colors set, which the eagle-eyed among you will also notice matches Galeri's existing markers set in terms of the colors. Then there's a primary colors set, which is kind of your basic glosses for all intents and purposes. And then the auto colors set, which is a mix of glosses, metallics, and pearls. Now, obviously, this range of finishes is a little bit weird for us as miniature painters. We don't generally use gloss paint very much. We certainly can find uses for pearl and metallic paints though, and so I think that's a lot of where we're probably going to find our gold here. But I wanted to be thorough and, put these through their paces. So to start out with, I grabbed the primers. They're making 3 of them. They have a white, a black, and a grey. They label them as matte. I'm a little bit dubious of that. Typically, in my experience, things that are designed for Gunpla, modelling, cars, that kind of thing, what they call matte tends to be what we as miniature painters call satin. And as you can see, as I'm getting involved with the grey here, it's pretty satin. It's not really what we would call matte. We would really be looking for like an ultra matte if we were going to call it matte at all. But that's fine because obviously this is a primer, it goes under everything else anyway. So as long as it's kind of matte-ish, matte enough that we can see what we're doing, then that's great. As I progress onto the white primer here, one of the big things I notice is, well, you might notice this too actually. You know when you've got a rattle can and you spray white and it's like really saturated, covers really well, but then you try to prime something white with like a white airbrush primer and it's usually a massive pain. It takes like 5 coats and it's really grey. It's just not good, but well, that's really not the case here. This is genuinely the best white primer I've ever seen, by a pretty long margin as well. Like, this comes out rattle can good and it's obviously airbrush convenient, so that's pretty huge for me. I often avoid using white primer specifically because it's usually such a pain to use with the airbrush and I don't really like rattle cans. Finally, I did prime this tank door with the black, and the main thing I wanted to test here was the zenithal. The black goes on really nice and smooth. Actually, spoiler alert, this has become my full-time go-to main black primer now. I use this over the AK matte black primer that I used to use, just because it goes on so consistently, so easily. I did actually mess up here. That is loosely related to the paints. I will explain later what happened there, but it was something that I was aware of and that you're going to be aware of after watching this, so don't worry about that. And then a little zenithal over this as well, just to kind of see how smooth that went on. And again, just no problems. A little bit spotty. I could have sat there and tuned the paint a bit more, but I just kind of wanted to see what it was like out of the bottle. It's fine. It's like good enough for a zenithal that you're going to paint over. If it's a zenithal that you're going to use for like a slap chop or something, you probably want it a little bit smoother. And you could just sit there and tune the paint with the thinner. Worth mentioning as well, they are doing cleaner and thinner in 3 different sizes, the same sort of 17-18 ml normal bottles, and then like a 60 and a 120. So a good range of sizes. However, I will say the cleaner, they need to do an even bigger size for the cleaner. I'm down to like 1/4 of a bottle, and obviously I have a couple of extra bottles because some of these sets have an extra bottle packed in with them, but if I only had this one bottle, which would be what most people would buy, I'd be nearly out, and all I've done is test them. Like, this is just changing colors 7 or 8 times, and yeah, I'm almost out of cleaner. So there definitely needs to be a bigger bottle of cleaner. That's probably my first and most important piece of feedback for Galeri so far. However, with the primers tested and me very happy with them, I wanted to start getting some colors onto some pieces. So the first thing I did was pick up that Zaku that we primed white, and I wanted to kind of have a look at how these colors mix in the brush, because typically when I'm painting just for myself, I will just kind of take the lazy route and mix paints in the brush. I don't tend to bother with like cleaning and changing and using specific colors and mixing separately and all that kind of thing. I'm a pretty lazy airbrusher. So I started off with this green and just started adding more and more white into it, building up layers. 2 of the things that I was really keen to test here was, 1, obviously how this mixes in the brush, but 2, also I'm painting with this just at bottle consistency. I'm doing absolutely nothing to thin it or anything, and I really wanted to see how accurate I could spray, because I'm obviously, this is the Mobius 0.3 that I'm using now. I've switched over from my big priming brush to my detailing brush, and this is a brush I'm really used to. I'm getting good lines with it, and surprisingly good accuracy, considering this is a paint that I'm completely unfamiliar with and just figuring out for the first time. So I'm actually really, really happy here. And obviously, yes, this Zaku is going to come out really glossy as it's finished, but I can chuck some AK Ultra Matte over the top and it'll come down to looking like a normal miniature. And actually this gloss finish is kind of advantageous in a lot of ways, because I do a lot of like streaking grime and oiling and stuff like that, and I'm really into particularly doing that on these Gundam miniatures. I think that's a really good look for them. So having that gloss finish is actually just going to make it a lot easier to apply those solvent-based stages. Now, speaking of solvent, something that's really important to note with these paints is, although they are lacquer-like in their finish, it looks like a gloss lacquer finish, they are actually a solvent-free and a water-based paint. So, you know, that they're going to be actually kind of similar in a lot of ways to your normal miniature paints in terms of their behavior and stuff. However, one of the really important things, and I kind of touched on this earlier, is you need to keep these paints as far away from alcohol as is humanly possible. Now, normally when I run my airbrush with just my typical miniature paints, I use these 2 things as cleaning fluids. This one is water and alcohol with a little bit of soap in it, and this one is pure isopropyl alcohol. That's usually absolutely fine. These paints curdle the second they get near any alcohol. Now, obviously, what that means is that for thinning and cleaning, I have to use the Galeri thinner and cleaner because they're just ones that I know are compatible. But then you probably could just use like water as well. You know, obviously they are water-based, so I think the only thing that bugs me about it, like, I'd be fine with having to use the cleaner, but they need to sell like a litre bottle of it or something, a bottle that's actually going to last like a bit of time, because even that 210ml bottle, that's going to run out in seconds. But outside of that, so far I'm really impressed, and I was only going to get more impressed as I moved on to the pure metallics. First of all, back to this tank panel, I hit this with like just a flat gloss kind of tealy colour. And then I wanted to see kind of how close I could get to a sort of Alpha Legion vibe, so I grabbed this metallic turquoise and did a spray of that over the top, and it just goes on so nice. The thing that I was actually really worried about here is maintaining that sort of metalliciness, that shiny kind of beautiful metallic finish, because often with coloured metallics, it's a lot of that luster that we lose in trade-off for getting the colour there. And yeah, not even close to a problem here. I really wanted to have like some buggy things to say about the paints themselves so that it felt like a fair review, but the fact of the matter is they're really bloody good. This is super pretty, and with like some weathering and transfers and stuff, I would straight up use this for Alpha Legion. I think it would look amazing. And yeah, it just keeps getting better. I then grabbed this Khorne Berserker. I wanted to show you the gold and silver in the context of just brush paints, because obviously as miniature painters, we do more of our work with our brush than our airbrush a lot of the time. And a lot of you, I'm sure, will remember the old classic Vallejo Air model color. They had like a really long name, but there was a silver called Dark Aluminium that was like the paint to paint silver with for a very long time. Seems to have fallen out of favor a little bit here, but the silvers in this set are really reminiscent of that. Just like, look at this go on. It's just like one coat, really fluid, really easy to control. Just super, super nice for brush painting metallics. And the surprise was that the gold is actually also that good, because golds, certainly in that Vallejo range, they were kind of crap. This is going to be like a 2-coat coverage, not a 1-coat coverage, but when I switched to the golds to kind of do a little bit of trim here, I was actually really surprised at how good the coverage is. And they also just look so much more realistic than a lot of miniature painting metallic ranges. Like, they really look close to actual metal, and that's kind of amazing. So yeah, all in all, I'm really impressed with these paints. Now, this being Galeri, they are launching these in just a few days from me publishing this video. This video should go out on the 6th of August, and these are launching on the 8th of August. There's going to be discounts on both Amazon and the Galeri website. I think it's like 10%, but as you know, because Galeri are a partner of the channel, we have a discount code for them anyway. So if you want to buy them, you can actually use our discount code, which I'll put below, in addition to their 10% discount, and get even more money off, which is kind of mad. I'll flash a little thing up on screen that shows the sort of RRPs, so you can get an idea of how much cheaper these are going to be with the discounts. But yeah, in terms of pricing, I think it's fair. The quantities are fine. It's all very standard. It's like 17, 18 ml bottles with rattlers in them, you know. The bottles are nice. It's a custom bottle, which is always good to see, you know, shows that they put a bit of effort in. There's just a real lot to like, and they're very, very impressive. Are these going to be like my new go-to miniature paints? No, of course not, because they're gloss. But I think I'm going to use these a lot, and I really think the metallics are a serious game changer, so I'm really impressed. But yeah, out of 60 paints that they sent me, 33 of them have made it into my regular lineup back on my desk there. All 3 of the primers. The thinner is great. The cleaner is actually fantastic. I just, like I said, wish there was more of it. Even the varnishes, they're doing a matte and a gloss, and honestly I don't think there's enough difference between them to warrant using both. But a good gloss varnish is something I've really been in need of lately. I end up just using Ardcoat from G-Dubs, and that's not the easiest gloss varnish to use. This one's really thin, so I can brush it on with really good control. I can airbrush it on. With Ardcoat, you don't really have either of those options. It's really hard to use through the airbrush, and because it's so thick and gloopy, it's really hard to control laying it on manually. So, like, a lot of what I use regularly just got rendered obsolete. I'm a very happy boy, and I think you should give them a look. Head over to Galeri's website, link down in the description below. It is an affiliate link, as I said. If you use my code, which I'm pretty sure is Tesseract Miniature Studios, it might be Tesseract Minis by now if I've changed it. Either way, it'll be correct in the description below, because, you know, I can check. And treat yourself. Get some really nice paints. Give them a look. I have no more to say. I really did want this to be like a super balanced review where there was like pros and cons. But the only cons really are just that you don't get enough cleaner, and they're all gloss at the moment, so that limits what we can do. But like I said, 33 of them are like right here now in my regular lineup of paints, like things that I want to use regularly, and you know, that says really good things, right? Like more than 50% of an entire paint range. Very happy with that. This box in particular, the metallics, this is probably the one that you'll like really get loads of use out of, and obviously it's only 12 paints, so this is going to be one of the cheaper sets. Like this I actually genuinely just think is a must-have now. But yeah, these launch on the 8th, like I say, so head over. I'm rambling, I'm out of practice with YouTube. Thanks for watching, folks. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.